Hey guys, my name's Ken. Welcome to Import Garage, where I'm going to walk you through the steps of how to do a Prothane 4-link kit on your AE86. Let's do it! Okay, so now we're talking about loosening the bolts for the 4 links. It's hard to see, obviously, because it's a little dark down here. Basically, you've got 8 nuts you got to crack and get all the bolts out. Now, if I can get a good look there, I've already cracked this nut loose, which you can see, but in order to do that I had to blowtorch it. Now that's not something everyone will have to do, but if you live anywhere that gets salted, and this car has seen a lot of kilometers, a lot of rain, a lot of salt, a lot of snow, it's likely these are going to be seized. Now if you live in sunny California, maybe you can just unbolt them no problem. However, that's not the case here in Canada, and probably not the case anywhere where it gets cold and wet a lot. Anyway, so I had to blowtorch these just to get them loose. Once they're loose, you can just loosen it right off. But that's not the only problem you're gonna encounter, the nuts being seized down there. So I'll get this off real quick. Come on, you. Now you can see I don't even need that wrench on the other side to stop the bolt from spinning. That's our other problem. Now we got the nut off, but the bolt is actually completely seized within the metal sleeve in the bushing. So even though this is loose, you cannot get that bolt out no matter what you do. You can get this wrench on here, and I've tried a million times. Sorry, you can't really see, but it doesn't matter how much pressure you put on there. It is not coming off because the actual metal bolt is seized to the metal sleeve within the bushing, which leaves you in a bad predicament. How do you get it out? Well, in this case, you could use an angle grinder and cut the ends off the bolt. Cut this end off, cut this end off, pry this bracket open, and have the link fall out. Alternatively, and what I did on the other side of the car is I used an angle grinder and very carefully went in between the metal of the 4-link and the metal of the bracket and went up in here and cut the bolt there, cut the bolt here. The link will fall right out and you can just pop these ends off. That's your best bet, but you better be a friggin' wizard with that angle grinder. Otherwise you could damage the bracket. Now I've had a lot of practice using angle grinders. If you haven't, or it's your first time, you better practice first. Okay, so now we've got the 4-link out. This is just one. And with my whole video I'm just focusing on one. You guys can just repeat it for all of them. And all we're going to do is, now that we've got it out, and you can see I had to chop the bolts, I'm going to drill out the bushing so that you can get the new one in. So you can use the hand drill. In my case, I've got a drill press here. I hope the lighting's not too bad. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this bushing and use the drill press to drill some holes in the old rubber. Once I've drilled the holes, I'll be able to just hammer the bushing right out, which I'll show you in a minute. So now you can see I've drilled out the holes in the bushings here and here. You can see the metal sleeve is already falling through. You just got to give it a few whacks with the hammer and it'll come right out. So after you get those out just by hammering it, if you want, you can clean up the 4-link, or you can just move right on to reinstalling the bushings. In my case, I'm going to clean it up. Okay, so what I got here is actually the metal sleeve that's within the rubber bushings for all the 4-links. And this is one where the bolt was seized inside. So you can see the bolt is fully seized in there. She ain't coming out no matter what. Now, like I said before, if you're from sunny California, this bolt's probably not going to be seized in, and you can get it out. I mean, even here's another metal sleeve where it wasn't seized in, and the bolt just slid right out. But if there's a lot of rust, there's likely to be some of these seized, and like I said, you're going to have to chop the bolt ends off. Now, just for shits and giggles, I did put it in the press to try to press the bolt out. even that won't get that bolt out. So that is 100% seized, and that is why you're likely going to have to chop some bolt ends. Now, if that's the case and you got to chop some bolts, you're going to have to order new bolts, and that's what I got here. I've got 4 new bolts because I had to chop 4 off. They're all OEM from actually I had to order them from California. They say made in Japan here and whatnot. They're all OEM style, and here is the washers that I got along with it. But if you're gonna go that way, be prepared to pay a hefty penny, because I paid $50.26. That is a ripoff if I've ever heard of any. So that's it for that. Okay, so now I've laid out the lower 4-link that I removed, and I cleaned it up. You know, as you can see, I painted it all nice and blue, got rid of the rust. When you're ready to install your new bushings, make sure you get all of the old bushing out of there. Some of it does stick to the inside. I had to go in there with like sandpaper and get some of it out and pry it out. And, well, do what you gotta do, I guess. Whatever you gotta do to get it out, sometimes you might have to burn it out. Anyways, so I've laid out what you basically need. Here's your bushing kit. If you're doing the Prothane bushings like I did, come on. Of course, it's gonna be a pain. This is them basically. They are 3 parts. It splits apart, and there's the inside metal sleeve and the 2 bushing pieces. Before you go and install it into here, make sure you lubricate everything. So inside, stuff some inside, separate it here, lube all of this, pull it right out, pull the steel right out, lubricate all this, lubricate inside these holes, all of this here. You don't really need to lubricate the outside, and even lubricate inside this hole. It'll help you slide it in. Now the kit does come with a little lubricant pack, you can see here, but I find it doesn't really get good coverage. At least not maybe mine's is old, but I didn't get good coverage. So I went and bought a whole thing of grease, which will do the job better. That being said, I know for a fact that this is the better grease. So if you got the money, I guess you could just order a tub of this stuff. That'd probably be better. So you're definitely going to need some vinyl gloves. I just bought these at the dollar store. Obviously the grease, and you install, these should slide right in once you've obviously greased it. I'm not going to push it in just yet. And once they're in, you can use a C-clamp to really squish that bushing in there and make sure it's nice and snug. Or you could use a vise like this and crush it in. Either way, you probably want to crush it a little bit. Otherwise, it's going to be an absolute royal pain to reinstall into the car. So here we are now. We're going to grease up the bushing. So we just take some. Actually, let's just grab a bit more. And first, we'll lubricate in here. Get it all nice and greased up to make it the bushing slide in easier. Then we're gonna grab some more. Sorry, holding this camera and doing this at the same time is not easy. And just grease this up. It's important, like you can see here, I've laid out some cardboard. It's actually a beer case. You basically need something to make sure you don't get this too dirty, because you can see my workbench here is an absolute disaster zone. You do not want to get dirt inside your bushings or in the grease, really. So I'll keep lubing it up, and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so now you can see I've liberally lubed up all of the parts. I lubed up the metal shaft, I jammed some in there, and I lubed up where we're going to insert the bushing. So it's really not that difficult. You can do this by hand. Some people say you need a vise, but I really don't think you do, as long as you got a little bit of muscle. You can see I've just put it in. Just give her some pressure. You can't really get a good angle on this. God damn. Of course, it's going to resist when I'm filming. I'm using like... You just really got to get it on a good angle. Get in there just a little. And there, she's in. So you can see that's in. You'll probably want a cloth, or I got some paper towel here. I'll wipe it down after I've got the whole thing installed. Bear with me for 1 second as I flip this guy over. You see I've got the grease, it's all nice and greased up. And the reason you grease it up a lot is because Prothane bushings particularly are known to make some noise if they're not properly lubed. So that's what we're trying to prevent here, because you do not want to disassemble the 4 links again if you don't have to. So, same thing. I've got it like, there's a better angle, sorry. I got it kind of kinked a little in there, and I'm just going to push down on it. And you can see now both sides of the bushings are in. Pretty easy. You can see it's all greasy as hell. You'll have to wipe it down after. Now I've got this all lubed, and I jammed some inside too, because the bolt has to go through eventually. And this is a little tricky. Maybe not. There you go. Just got her in there, and just push, push, push. Push some more. And push some more. Sorry about that. I'm sure I got terrible camera angles there. But you can see now that's in. And you'll notice, if you look carefully, that it's actually not all the way to the edge here, the steel part I mean. But on this side it's a little out. So we're going to fix that by using a vise or a C-clamp. I like to use the vise, but a lot of people won't have a mounted vise, so use a C-clamp. Now, if you're either way, you probably want to put something between the bushings and the actual vise, so you don't damage the bushing. Okay, so now I've got her in the vise. You can see I've actually used 2 pieces of wood here. I put plastic bags over them because I don't really want wood chips in my bushing or in the grease. But yeah, all you do is put her in the vise and just crush the hell out of it. So I don't really think I need to demonstrate how to crush this, but here we go. I'm using a breaker bar for just some extra leverage. So crush, 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 crush. You'll see the grease pouring out everywhere. The whole idea is you want to crush that bushing, but you also want to, well, obviously you're crushing the bushing. You're also pushing the metal sleeve to make sure it gets centered. But if you don't crush that bushing a bit at least, it's going to be a royal pain to get it back in its bracket. So that's really it. It's installed now. Let me take it off real quick so you guys can take a quick look. But yeah, just repeat for the other side, and you're pretty much ready to slap her back in. So let me wiggle this out. Damn it! Of course, the bag sticks. Exactly what I didn't want to happen. Get any dirt out of there. Sorry guys. Anyways, that's it. You can see now that the metal sleeve is now centered. The bushing's been crushed and it's going to slide into the bracket a lot easier. So now I'm just going to repeat it for the other side and reinstall this. Okay, now we're looking at reinstalling the lower 4-link. It's really not that difficult of a job. All you really want to do is grease up your bracket, which you can see there, and slide her back in. You'll probably want to use the bolt to center it once you get it in there. Usually I slide the bolt in just to center the 4-link, and then I'll pull the bolt back out and grease the hell out of it, because the bushing will rotate around the bolt when it's in there. So you'll want to grease this bolt like crazy. But when you're just centering the 4-link within the bracket, you don't want to get your hand totally covered in grease, because then you're going to get the 4-link covered and greased, and it's going to be a pain in the ass to work with. So basically, just press it in there, right into there, and the other side into the bracket on the rear axle, and that's it really. It's pretty easy. Once you got that, just bolt her on down. Okay, so here's another thing you may want to do. I've just got the bolt back in the 4-link and it's reinstalled, chassis side, and before I put the nut on, you might want to put some of this stuff on. I don't know if you can see it there, but it says anti-seize. Now the whole point of this is to make sure our bolts don't seize again. Now, in all likelihood, you probably won't be servicing this again, but if you are, for whatever reason, your bolts won't be seized. So just get some of this stuff. It's like $5 at a warehouse store, wherever. I got it at Canadian Tire, but if you're in the States, they probably don't have that. And then just reinstall your bolt. Now, when you're reinstalling your bolt, damn, it's bright. When you're reinstalling your bolt, just make sure you only do it finger tight. Now, there's a reason for that, which we'll get to in a little bit. So here I'm just tightening them up. Just finger tight, just enough to keep it in so the bolt doesn't slide out, but you're not going to actually torque it down. Okay, so now you can see I've got the four-link fully reinstalled, the bolts bolted down, both ends, here too. You can't see it because the shock's kind of in the way, but you get the gist of it. She's all bolted down. Now, I told you previously how you should only do it hand tight, and that is because there's a lot of talk about preloading bushings. Now, it all depends what type of bushing you're using. If you're using the Prothane kit designed for the AE86, then you don't really have to preload the bushings. It has to do with the way the bushing is designed. In the case of the T3, what am I saying? The Prothane kit, you just bolt it in and torque it down whenever you feel like it. However, if you're using OEM or TRD style, you have to set the preload on the bushings because it actually plays a role in your suspension. To do that is actually really simple. All you have to do is jack the diff up to like natural stance. I guess what they call it, neutral position, which is neutral ride height basically. So if you look at our diff right now, it's drooping because there's no wheels on the car. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this jack here, and this is just to show you. I don't need to do this. Raise up our jack. Come on. You want to keep jacking up until you can see the diff is now going up because the springs are compressing. And you get it to neutral ride height. There's many ways to do this. You don't have to jack up the diff. Alternatively, you could have it on all fours and try to crawl underneath, but that would be a pain in the ass. Or, what was the other suggestion? I forget. Some people suggest you get all four wheels off the ground to get a true neutral position, but I mean, depends how hardcore you really are. But basically, you get the diff up in neutral position. You can see the diff is higher up as the weight is on the diff, on the whole rear end. I mean, not just drooping. If the car lifts up when you jack it, the whole car, you know you've got the weight on the suspension and not just drooping anymore. So once you've done that, then you torque up your bolts. So torque them all to spec. The spec I'll include in the description. I don't know off the top of my head, but you check the video description. Anyways, that's really it. It's not that difficult of a job, but you're definitely going to need a lot of patience to do it. It took me about 3 days with the car up on jack stands, between wrestling with bolts, cutting bolts, trying to figure out how to get it done, and as well as going to Toyota and ordering the bolts and whatnot. If I can give you any final advice, it would be to do one link at a time. Don't do more than one, or it's going to be an absolute nightmare wrestling with that diff. Myself, I disconnected the top 2 links first and did those, and then moved on to the lower ones, but that was a mistake. Removing 2 at once meant the diff was way out of alignment, and getting them back into position meant having 2 or even sometimes 3 jacks positioned, trying to get the diff into the right position so I could bolt down the links. That being said, another thing you should do, take these off, is get a pair of these guys. Get some goggles don't wear safety glasses, wear safety goggles. I had so much rust fall on my eye, and wearing safety glasses, it would slip past the edges of the safety glasses right into my eyes. So definitely get some safety goggles and keep that rust out of your eyes so you don't have to run to the hospital like I did. So yeah, that's really it. I'm sure you guys can get it done. Just learn from my mistakes and learn from the video, and it should be easy. So I hope this helps out some 86er out there, and hopefully I'll get some more videos out soon.